Hey there, hello there, it's Jeff Cardano. Welcome to another classic soccer video. And we are going to go into the semifinals of the 2026 World Cup with best teams. So the format was simple. 48 teams made the World Cup for 2026. I took their best teams, notable team from each of the 48 participating nations and put them in a classic soccer thing. Of course, there was one little tiny issue because four nations are in their first World Cup. Carousel, Cape Verde, um, Jordan, and Uzbekistan. So obviously, what happened is I don't have any classic soccer with those guys. So what ended up happening is that I randomly drew the closest, the best teams that by FIFA rank that did not qualify, and then four of them got to bring their best World Cup teams in there and all that. So we'll run down through it. All right. So the first round, um, a month ago, 58 Sweden lost. Sweden, great country. 1958 is the nation. They hosted the World Cup and got to the final, but lost to a 17-year-old Pele. They lost in the aggregate to the 86 Argentines in the prelims 4-0. 2014 Costa Rica. Costa Rica surprised everyone by making the quarterfinals in 2014 and lost to the Dutch in the penalty shootout. They lost in the aggregate to the 50 Uruguayans. Cameroon got massively shocked. Cameroon did not make the World Cup. I don't think they're in the World Cup, but yeah. I picked their 1990 team because Roger Milla and the team that almost got to the semifinals if it wasn't for their choke against the Brits. 90 Cameroon tied Paraguay, but they lost to them. A massive shock because I didn't think Paraguay was going to beat Cameroon in the preliminary round. 2022 Al Ryan, aka Qatar, their only trip to the World Cup until this year. And of course, they hosted the World Cup, scored one goal, and basically quietly fell off a cliff, if you will. They lost the aggregate to 2010 Spain. 2006 Tunisia lost their thing. Tunisia, not much of a World Cup history as far as I know. I picked their 2016, and they lost to the 74 West Germans. 78 Scotland, Scotland, 8 World Cup appearances, 8 knocked out before the knockout games and all that. 1954, they didn't take advantage. They didn't think Switzerland was hot, but they were as a country. 1958, they fell flat to France. If memory serves me right. 1974, they lost on goal differential to Brazil because they couldn't beat Zaire by as much as Brazil could. 78, they choked massively, losing to Peru and tying Iran before beating the Dutch, but the Dutch were basically just throwing the game. 82, they had a goal differential choke against the Russians. It came down to the fact that 2 goals by the New Zealand team over Scotland ruined Scotland that year. 86, they were kicked off the pitch by Uruguay. 1990, they fell to Costa Rica, rebounded against Sweden, but lost to Brazil. And in 98, they lost to Morocco. Anyway, the Scottish team losing on penalties to New Zealand, and as John Motson would say, the scene so typically Scottish. Croatia was eliminated in the preliminary round. The 2018 squad, the team that got to the final, shocked a lot of people, including England. Got to the final, lost to France, and Mbappe, they lost to the 70 Brazilians. Australia, represented by the 2014 squad that pulled off a few things. It should have been 2006 by my book. They ended up losing to France on aggregate. Austria lost on aggregate. I put their 78 squad, the team that beat West Germany in a shocker. They lost to the Ivory Coast. USA, represented by the 1950 squad that shocked England in the tournament in Brazil, should have won 1930 or even 2002. They lost to the Czechs. Korea won 1-0 in aggregate against Colombia, represented by the 94 squad. I should have put the 90 squad technically, but the 94 squad was more inclined with Pele saying Colombia could win the World Cup. But they had drug cartel problems, and Andres Escobar's own goal ruined them in a way you don't want to know. Haiti, represented by the 74 squad. A lot of you probably think, well, Haiti did qualify for 2026, but you're probably thinking yourself, Haiti's never qualified for a World Cup. Actually, they have. 74. They were in a group. They actually scored a goal on South of Italy, breaking this 1,100 plus minute streak of international shutouts. The 74 Haiti squad lost to Egypt. Zaire, or what is now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo. You thought I was going to say Dominican Republic, but I did not. Anyway, Zaire, 1974, they got a World Cup, but they were basically hurt by this guy Sissoko, who was dictator for life, if you will. They got massacred by Portugal in this thing. South Africa lost the poorly around. I put their 2010 squad, Bafana, who hosted the World Cup, and actually beat the French. But TLTL, they became the first host to lose a trip to the knockout stages. England, Japan. I put their 2002 squad, the team that co-hosted the World Cup, but fell flat to Turkey, and Italy beat them on aggregate. And Iran, the 98 squad that beat up on the Americans in the Friendship Cup, they were picked for my Iran squad, and they lost to Senegal. Then came the round of 32. Norway. Norway won 1-0, but on penalties because Paraguay won 1 on the other side. Paraguay won on penalties, and Norway. I put the 94 team. 2026 team will probably be better with Erling Haaland on that squad. But yeah, Norway made the cup in 94. Egypt may have beaten Iraq in the second leg of the last 32, but they ended up losing. Egypt, represented by the 2018 squad with Mo Salah, trying to make things for the pyramids, but did not happen. Panama, represented by the 2018 squad, their first trip to the World Cup. Of course, they shocked a lot of people by winning over, I think it was Mexico, and then the Americans fell to Trinidad. So yeah, Panama qualified. They got ass whipped by the Dutch. Brazil actually lost the second in the last 32 on away goals. The draw, unluck of the draw, if you will. Forced them, we're going to say for Germany because I was trying to make it. You can't have it the same year, and you can't have it in the same continent. But yeah, Brazil, West Germany. Brazil fell. The total team thing, Brazil 1970, Pele, Jorginho, and a lot of people, Carlos Alberto. Mexico, represented by the 1970 squad, who was better than the 86 squad in my mind. Of course, maybe a lot better. Should have put 86 Mexico, but yeah, Argentina beat them because Mexico hosted the World Cup in 1970. Saudi Arabia, represented by the 94 squad, Saeed Warren with his solo goal against Belgium, which was massive for Saudi Arabia and got them to the knockout stages. And of course, yeah, uh, that's what happened. Yeah, they lost to France. Bosnia, represented by the 2014 squad, the only other time Bosnia went to the World Cup other than 2026. Of course, Bosnia beat Italy in the qualifying playoff that actually sent everyone into raptures in Italy, and in a bad way. They lost to the Ivory Coast. Switzerland beat Algeria on gold on aggregate. Algeria, represented by the 82 squad, that should have went far in the World Cup, but were dethroned by Germany and Austria's play acting. Ghana, represented by the 2010 squad, that was trying to become the first African team to make the semifinals. And when I researched the 2010 World Cup, I didn't even realize Ghana was the only one of the 6 African nations to make it to the knockout stages in 2010. And of course, they lost to Uruguay. Luis Suarez palmed the ball off the line, got a red card, but Gian missed the penalty, and Uruguay beat them. They got taken out by England. Senegal, represented by the 2002 squad, their first ever World Cup appearance, and they shocked France 1-0 on. And of course, as John Motson would say, Papa Booby Dub is there, and Booby Dub is there. After half an hour of play, Papa Booby Dub. Yeah, and they actually went to the quarterfinals. They actually beat Sweden on a golden goal because when they did the golden goal, the first extra time goal, and Senegal beat them, but Turkey beat them. He who lives by the golden goal dies by the golden goal. They lost to Belgium in this aggregate. Turkey, represented by the 2002 squad, who beat Senegal and Japan, as I talked about. Turkey shocked a lot of people by getting to the semifinals. They were taken out by Brazil, but they took third place against Korea, so that was huge. They fell to Uruguay in this aggregate. Ecuador, represented by the 2006 squad. I don't know much about Ecuador's soccer prowess. They got beaten by Spain in this aggregate. Nigeria, represented by the 98 squad. They did not make the World Cup this year, but I put their 98 squad in as one of those 4 replacements, like for Uzbekistan. They end up shockingly losing to New Zealand, so that's the second straight time New Zealand has pulled off a shocker. South Korea, represented by the 2002 squad, that got some favorable, questionable tactics against Italy and Spain to get to the semifinals. They lost to Italy of all teams, and then Canada represented by the 2022 squad. It was either that or 86, and I think 22 had it. I mean, we scored 2 goals. They lost to the Czechs, and Portugal shockingly loses to Morocco. The 2006 squad, I could have easily went with Eusebio in 1966 because they did get to the semifinals, but I went with 06 because of CR7's influence. Although Messi's not in this one. Okay, round of 16. Uruguay shocks Italy on aggregate. Italy represented by the 1982 squad. Well, Italy is not in the World Cup in 2026, I know, but Italy won the draw to be in there. So yeah, the 82 squad, the team that had Pello Rossi come back from suspension and all that to win the World Cup. Could have been 2006, but I didn't think Materazzi mattered. The Dutch beat the Moroccans in the round of 16. Morocco, represented by the 2022 squad. There have been many times Morocco has tried to host the World Cup, and they were in the World Cup, but 2022 was different. They became the first African nation to get to the Final Four. And yes, Morocco is in Africa, if you must know. Yeah, Morocco shocked everyone. And for a bit, with 2 knockout wins over Spain and Portugal, Morocco's last goal given up was to Canada until the semifinals. France beat Paraguay on aggregate. Paraguay represented by the 2010 squad that kind of did okay. England beat Ivory Coast. Cote d'Ivoire 2010 trying to do well in the World Cup on African soil, but did not. New Zealand finally got taken out in the round of 16 by Belgium. New Zealand put the 2010 squad that actually shocked everyone by outdueling Italy. New Zealand had 3 ties, but they scored 3 points. Italy only scored 2 in that World Cup tournament. So yeah, New Zealand flat. Spain beat West Germany, battle of former World Cup champs, and Germany ended up flat. The 34 team that took out total football with the Dutch and were hosting the World Cup anyway. They did lose to East Germany, but that actually helped them out. Argentina crushed the Czechs on aggregate. Czechs represented by the 1962 squad that shocked everyone by narrowly beating Scotland in a qualifier and then managing somehow to get to the final, losing to Brazil. And finally, Switzerland beats Iraq in the Sweet 16. Iraq represented by the 86 squad. And then the quarterfinals, Belgium beat the Dutch narrowly. So total football, 74 got KO'd. The Dutch are in the World Cup this year. Oh, yeah, 74. Ooh, that's sweet. I don't think so. France crushed Switzerland in the quarterfinals. Switzerland represented by the 54 team that hosted the World Cup and got to the quarterfinals. Argentina beat England. Well, typical English losing to Argentina, but yeah, the 66 team that won, that had the World Cup on home soil and animals and all that with the 66 Argentina squad. But they won the World Cup. They beat West Germany in the final. Of course, Jeff Hurst's 1 goal notwithstanding. That was not over the line, and I'm an Englishman. And on away goals, Spain beat Uruguay. The 1950 Uruguayan squad, well, they won the World Cup in 1930, didn't compete in 34 and 38 because travel to Europe was a whole lot different in the 30s. So when the tournament was in Brazil, Uruguay entered and beat Brazil on the final day, and it was Gigia and Schivano who scored goals that did what only 2 other people did: the Pope and Frank Sinatra. Silence Americana. So we're going to go to the semifinals. France versus Belgium, the internal rivals. They always seem to bump each other, and Argentina and Spain. France represented by the 98 squad. I know I could have said 2022. I should have. But 98 was the originators and all that. Zizou, Blanc, Barthez, Jokiev, all that. They take on the 2018 Belgians, who were Belgium known for underachieving or overachieving at World Cups. They ended up taking third in 2018 in the World Cup and actually proving they were a good nation. Argentina represented by the 1986 squads that saw Maradona do the hand of God goal against England. However, he baffled England with his 11 touches in 11 seconds goal, which is the goal of the century. And Spain, the 2010 team, the team that finally gave Spain a title in a sense and made sure they were never saddled with the overachiever or underachiever status. So the first semifinal match, France and Belgium first leg sees Belgium shockingly win 2-0. Kevin De Bruyne with a pair. In the other one, Spain beats Argentina 2-0. David Villa and Sergio Ramos. Looks like current events. First semifinal, Belgium France. France shockingly wins 3-0. Dimone Petit, Shokiev, and then Sisu in the 90th minute. Belgium was so close, it would have been a penalty shootout. But Belgium choked. The French told Belgium, "You are underachievers." Spain and Argentina, are we going to see the same thing? No, we won't. Spain crushes Argentina, two by David Villa, two by Carlos Poyo. And it'll be Spain versus France in the thing. We could see Spain versus France in the final in real life. That would actually work out. I might make France versus Spain, I think. Well, anyway, so 2010 Spain, 6-1. They actually lost to Switzerland their first game of the group stages, but then won six straight to be the champs. In this tournament, they're 8-0-2. They had to go through the preliminary round. They didn't get the bye in the round of 32. So 8-0-2. In 10 games, they've scored 28 goals, given up only 3. They gave up none to Argentina. And that's the funny thing because they gave up none to Qatar, none to Ecuador, none to the 74 Germans, none to the 86 Argentines. Uruguay was the only time they gave up goals, and they had to win on away goals. So Uruguay almost ruined them. David Villa has scored 15 of the 28 goals, so he has outscored the rest of the Spanish team by himself and put up 4 assists too. So David Villa is basically going to be the hero for the thing. And they will take on 98 France, who were 6-0-1 at the Stade de France. I think they lost, didn't they? I don't remember. But yeah, 98 France, the team that won on home turf, had to score a golden goal by Laurent Blanc to take down Paraguay, and then Blanc was red carded against Croatia, even though the Croatian player played back. France 8-1-1 in this tournament. They had to go through the preliminary round as well. 19 scored 5 against, so they've only scored 1.9 a game. They've given up 5. They gave up 2 to Belgium, 1 to Paraguay, 2 to Arabia. They shut down Australia and Switzerland. Yeah, what a comeback against the Belgians. Diomede is out for the final because of a suspension. Shokiev has 5 goals, Thierry Henry 4, Petit 3, Turam and Zidane 2, Desai, Lisa Razun, Terzike. Shokiev has the most assists with 4, so it's basically Shokiev versus David Villa. And yes, we will have the final, and yes, we'll have it in at full. So yeah, Spain the goal scorers. Puyo with 4, Iniesta with 4, Sergio Ramos, Samuel Alonso, Pedro, and Jesus Navas with the other ones. So let's look at the summary. David Villa has the golden boot by so much so. He has more than Faldano and Maradona do combined. Moynier has 4 assists in 7 games, Villa 4, and Shokia 4. Most scored, Spain has 28, France has 19. They're 2 back of Argentina. Yeah, Spain's definitely got first place. I mean, France would have to score 9 goals. Fewest goals conceded. They're not. They're nowhere near that list. Analysis. 32 games both teams scored, 62 clean sheets. When you lead by 1 goal, you're 23, 5, and 12 in the game. When you lead by 2 goals, you're 25, 0, and 2. So, yeah, that's within the game. That's not like aggregate. Halftime, when you're winning, you're 60 wins, 1 loss, 9 ties. And when you score first, you're 73, 5, and 12. Most common goal full-time scores, 1-0 for the home team, 3-0 for the road team, and 2-0 for the road team 11 times. Only 2 games have seen 6 goals in a match. 28 times we've seen 3 goals in a match, which is the highest percentage, and 2 goals has 26. Goals per 15 minutes, the highest percentage is 31 to 45, and then 76 to 90. So basically close to the end of the first half and the second half. Highlights. Hat tricks are better. David Villa has put up 2 hat tricks, one against Ecuador, one against Qatar. Joseph Hugi for Switzerland and Czechs Adolf Scherer have done that. Switzerland and Algeria have had a 3-3 tie, which was a thriller. and Switzerland won on aggregate. Algeria made it close. Five goals by one team. Spain did it against Qatar. Argentina did it against Mexico. Holland did it against Panama. And Spain did it Ecuador. Comeback kings. Well, Switzerland and Uruguay within the game, of course. So, yep. We have a championship. 2010 Spain, 98 France. So we'll see who wins next time. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.